So welcome everyone. We'll start off by introducing ourselves because I know I'm meeting some of you for the first time. So Larissa, did you want to share about yourself first?
Sure. Welcome, everyone. It's great to see some smiling faces starting off our week and some familiar and new faces. My name's Larissa. I have worked with Lily and Damien in their supervision training and group supervision training and various other things as well. I am a team coach. Like most of you, I probably do lots of different types of coaching, but team coaching is something I'm very passionate about. I've received training in several different methodologies, one of them being ORSC, and that's kind of how both the supervision training and the ORSC training is how Traci and I kind of came together and have been collaborating since. So I could say more, but I think that's plenty for now. So Traci, how about you?
Yes. So Traci Manalani, and it's nice to meet so many of you for the first time and then seeing some familiar faces like Sunny. Nice to see you. Sunny and I went through Damian's course together. And Lily and Dom. Well, actually, no, it was just Damian's at the beginning. I went through the original course with him, and then I joined Lily's course with him for group supervision, which is where I met Larissa. And I have been a team coach for quite a number of years, over a decade. I guess I stopped counting at that point. I'm a coach, an executive coach overall, but very passionate about team coaching particularly. And Larissa and I did start conducting some research when we first met each other, and that's what we're here to share with you today. So should we get started, Larissa?
Yeah, sounds
All
good.
right. Yeah. So let me start off by giving you all some information about like what is this research. And so Larissa and I were really curious about team coaches and their experience with supervision. And we reached out through our networks, and it was a good time to be doing that because the GTCI, the Global Team Coaches Institute, had just been underway. And so we had access to quite a few team coaches that had just experienced supervision. So we had the good fortune of having 178 people respond to our survey. We're actually going to be using this data eventually to publish some research and maybe even a book chapter in one of Lily and Damian's books. But we did have 178 people respond. And of that number, you can see 161 people were credentialed in one way or another. So we have the specific data about who they're credentialed through. But we have are also listing with here the number of years of experience for both groups of people, the credentialed and the non-credentialed coaches. But what we're here today to share with all of you as supervisors is some of the data that we learned through the survey. But as we share this with you, oh, Larissa, did you say something?
Yeah, just wanted to stop you for half a second before we moved on. I
Yeah.
wanted to just highlight that we did definitely reach out to GTCI participants, but we also posted this on social media, both
Mm-hmm.
the ICF
Right.
supervision community of practice, as well as the team coaching community of practice. So it's not just GTCI. We just were really keen to kind of hit that market because we knew that they were being introduced to supervision. So I just wanted to clarify that. Sorry,
Thank
Traci.
you. No, that's great. That's great. And that will show up in our data. Actually, we had probably a smaller number, maybe not even an equal number of GTCI versus other organizations. And that's why the credentialing is through so many different bodies and the years of experience of all these team coaches. And so what we want to do as we share this information today with all of you is have you think about how you would answer some of these topics or respond to some of these topics. And so I'm going to hand it off to Larissa to start off the first consideration.
Yeah. So we will share the findings with you, but before we do that, we want you to just get your brains going and see what's here in the room, and to consider, what do you think as a team coach? Some of you are team coaches, maybe some of you aren't, you're supervisors, but if you put yourself into the shoes of a team coach, what do you think are those important factors? So whether it's training, whether it's experience, or um, you know coming with a equity inclusion lens, having experience in a certain industry. It could be anything. What do you think team coaches are really looking for when they select a supervisor? Maybe it's cost, who knows? So we'll just give you a few minutes to think about that. And as you're coming up with your answers, if you'd like to just pop them into the chat, we'll see what's here in the room. So
Right.
yeah.
And they'll do the chat after they come back, right? Because in their private rooms, they won't be able to share in chat.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, great. So should I open up the rooms then?
Yeah, and I think we could go with groups of 3-ish, considering our size. That way, and we have everyone.
This meeting is being recorded.
All right. So while you were returning, do we have everyone? Traci?
Oh no, now they are. Now they are. They're coming back right now. I was like looking. Yep.
Perfect. All right. Welcome back. Thank you for letting us crash in on some of your conversations. Loved what we were hearing. While we were talking here and back in the main room, Lily brought up a really good question that we thought we'd maybe just get a show of hands. How many people are actively practicing team coaching or providing that service? Can we just get a show of hands? I don't see you all on my screen at once.
Half, almost a little bit more than half. Okay. Yeah.
Okay. And how many people? Oh, good. Yay. And how many people would say they have either, let's just start with experienced team coaching supervision. 1, 2, 3, kind of. Okay, almost half. I'm curious what this is, Naomi.
I'm new to the team approach to supervision.
Okay, great.
I just don't have very many opportunities.
Okay, great. Well, it's great to have you here today. And maybe the one last question, just so we kind of get a feel for who's here. How many people have provided team coaching supervision?
1, 2, 3, 4.
Again, some
yeah.
Yeah. Okay, great.
Along with the rest, no? When I supervise someone who does individual coaching and team coaching, I do supervise them on both.
Yeah, you bring a great point, Dominique. We may not necessarily put ourselves out as a team coaching supervisor or, think that that's what we want to practice. But if our clients are asking for that and bringing cases, what do we do with that? So, I mean, that's the importance of kind of having these discussions. So thank you. If you wouldn't mind, I asked you to kind of have, and I see Maggie's done this, to share the insights from your team and what you kind of came up with as far as what are some of those things that you would be looking for. So we see a supervisor who is aware of, values, and is skilled at reflecting on all voices in the room. And I'm seeing it coming up again, that systems perspective. So most of you that have worked with Lily and Damien, you have that, right? And that's a great grounding, even though you might not consider yourself a team supervisor. What else is here? Experience with team coaching and training in team coaching supervision. So that's an interesting one. I think that looking for training specifically in team coaching supervision, there's starting to be offerings and people are certainly piloting things and running things, but I don't think it's quite at that level of development or maturity that there's many offerings and have been run through and all the bugs ironed out. I think a lot of things are still being co-created. So that's an interesting piece there. Curious if any other groups other than Maggie's group can put anything into the chat, or if you want to quickly speak to it, you can do that as well. We just want to make sure that we have enough time to move on to some of our other pieces.
Larissa?
Yeah.
In our group, and one of the things interesting because Eva pointed it out, Petra and Marlene were in our group, because I said I find that sometimes individuals who are looking for a supervisor in team coaching who don't understand supervision are looking for specific tools to use with their groups. And this is again goes back to education about what supervision really is and what it isn't.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great point. Like if they're looking only for tools, that's one thing. If they're looking for, an occasional, like, oh, I'm really stuck with this, I wonder, if what tools are out there. There's kind of that whole continuum, right? And figuring out, do you really want supervision, or are you looking more for kind of mentoring? Yeah.
For resources too.
Exactly. Yeah. Or like a community of practice or something like that. Yeah. And I'm noticing in the chat some pieces around that have nothing to do with training or experience, but more how we are showing up. So humility, openness, committed to ongoing training. And Lily has put, I'd rather have a supervisor who's an experienced team coach and trained as a supervisor than a team coaching supervision training without experience, right? Having that wealth of experience to draw on, I think is very valuable versus, okay, we have a bunch of theories about what team coaching is and what supervision is. Let's smash those together and go with it versus a deep, rich experience. So I think that's great.
Okay. Yeah, Lily brings up a point I hadn't quite put my finger on. I was a part of the international coaching outfit, team coaching back in the mid-teens, before supervision was even on my radar. And there was a whole different conversation in those 50 hours of training around what it means to coach more than one person at a time, versus inviting them to be more reflective about what's going on in the room, not just what they bring. And Lily's point just brought that to my attention. That's exactly right. That's a huge difference. Thanks, Lily, for that.
Yeah. And Dominique has built on that, just saying, there's so many different types of teams, like even with, several, just admitting someone into the room here, sorry. With working with, I don't know how many teams over the years, every team is different and they all have a new kind of nuance to them. So that experience, I don't think you can learn that in a short training program. So welcome, Marilyn. Good to see you.
Well, I think, should we reveal what our data has found? Okay.
Exactly.
Well,
let's see what people had to say.
And with this question, we had a multiple choice option rather than letting it be open-ended. And we appreciate your thoughtfulness is talking about humility and openness and systemic perspective. We captured more of the tactical types of things. And so 90% these are team coaches, by the way. So the people that responded were team coaches. So 90% are saying that the supervisor should have some experience as a team coach. That's what they felt would be important. 87% feel like it's very important to have an understanding of the E&I and its impact on teams. And so that may be nuanced in some of your responses as well, like being able to look at the systemic perspective as well as other elements here. Then 84% are saying that there should be some training at least in supervision. So they want the supervisor to have some training as a supervisor. That's a good idea. Then 79% say they want people to have had experience being a supervisor. And 77% want people who have had experience cross-culturally. And look at our group here today. I mean, like, how true is that with teams that we're working with now? I mean, cross-cultural is an important element. 62% are just saying that they would want someone certified as a team coach. So that's not as important as the experience. And then lastly, certification as a supervisor. It would be a nice to have, but not as important as actually being trained as a supervisor and having some experience. And so that's what our data has to show. So I'm going to go on and share a little bit more information about what we learned through our survey.
Traci, quick question.
Yes, of course.
I didn't see training as a team coach supervisor. Was that one of the choices that you offered?
No, I don't think we did at this point in time. It was so new. I think there's only a couple programs being offered at this moment in time, but that's a good, I mean, for the future, Maggie. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just curious. I'm aware of it just because of Damien and what Damien and Lily are offering. So.
Yeah, fantastic. So let's look at another question we asked. And so one of the earlier questions we asked was, have you experienced supervision? And so out of the 178 people that responded, 60% have experienced supervision, which is good news. Now, let me give you some more specifics about this. So of this group of 60%, 61% at the time of the survey were currently experiencing supervision. So they were currently actively engaged with supervision. And then I heard in some of the breakouts the reference to co-coaches, and we were quite interested in that question in our survey. And in fact, we had two different paths that people could take. We asked them, do you work with a co-coach or don't you? And there were sets of questions related to that. And so 60% do work with a co-coach, and when they experience supervision, more than half of the time they are doing that with their co-coach, at least sometimes. And so that's an interesting one. And I want to give a drum roll for this next statistic. This is going to be very good news for all of us. Yay, drum roll, please. 96% of the people who responded want to go on for supervision. So yay, they see the value of it. And so I'm going to hand it over to Larissa.
Yeah, thank you. Oh, before we move on, I see Sonia has her hand up.
Oh, yeah.
So... Oh, and just
a quick question, kind of like what Maggie asked before. Did you distinguish between individual and group supervision experience?
Well, as far as experience, we asked people about, yes, their experience of having received supervision. Did they do it in group settings and individual settings? Yes. And so we asked several questions about that as well, and even about how they did this with their co-coach. So we went down to that granular level. And so we'll have a lot of data to share. Thanks for asking that question. All right. I'll wait to move on to the next slide, Larissa, until you want me to.
Yeah, no, that's great. I mean, following up on that last point, which is really positive, 96% of those that experienced the supervision saw value and said that they wanted to continue and had planned to continue. So that's where we're going to go next and get you into another breakout group to think about, what impact can supervision have? We know that it has various impacts on coaches. For team coaches, it seems that most people are like, yes, I definitely need it for team coaching. There seems to be this it's more important. I don't know, it's maybe that's my bias hearing it, but I seem to hear that quite a bit. It's valuable, and it's super valuable for team coaches. So we wanted to have you kind of get back into some groups and think about what is that impact that supervision will have for team coaching. Think beyond just the coaches, for the organization, for the profession. Please think as systemically, as we all said, is important here, as you can, about why this would be an important support or resources for team coaches. And we'll give you about 10 minutes in your breakout group, and then we'll come back and have a discussion. Are there any questions about the discussion prompt there? Is everything clear? Yeah, and that's a good point, Lily. Exactly. For team coaching, I don't know if any of you have been involved in the pilot that ICF is putting out, but they have required specifically 10 hours. They do put it in the competencies very specifically for team coaching. It's more kind of vaguely suggested, maybe in the individual coaching. So it's interesting to see that set up like that. Okay, so Traci, if we want to, if there's no questions, if we want to send them off to breakouts to discuss why is this an important support for team coaches.
That's right.
And yes, let's hope it's not just because it's required.
Right. Yeah. I think there'll be more than that. And we will share some of what the team coaches had to say, but we want to know what you have to say about this. And we will be looking forward to hearing your responses live when you come back from your 10-minute discussions. So we'll see you in 10 minutes. Yeah.
And if you can, again, choose someone to kind of represent the group.
Sorry.
Oh, probably lost that. No, it's okay. Fine.
Yeah.
All good.
All right. Fantastic. All right. So what's out here? It says one, oh, it's just breakout rooms. Okay.
This meeting is being recorded.
Hopefully someone will represent your group and everyone can kind of add and supplement if they miss anything. But would someone like to start us off as far as, 96, I think the number was, percent have said, yes, this is valuable. We plan to continue with it. What do you think they're seeing is in it? What's in it for team coaches? What's in it for our profession?
You want it verbally or in the chat box?
Yeah, let's have a conversation.
Okay, I'm going to do my best.
Thanks.
My breakout, you jump in, correct me, don't be shy.
Okay.
We talked about it can create safety. It can act as a kind of recovery for those difficult situations. It can be an exponential, as in it builds on what the one being supervised might be bringing by bringing other perspectives, certainly the system perspective, but also the experience of the supervisor. We also talked about it being an opportunity for recovery, slowing down the pace of whatever's happening, not only in supervision, but in the coaching or the team supervision context. And all of those for me feel magical in the sense that there's more to it, this exponential and this, I didn't expect it. And yes, we have everything we need and we tapped into it. Yay, look, it happened. That's almost like it's a rarity in so many places I find myself. And all of those come together to kind of put us back together. That's what was my reference in the recovery. If something's been especially hard, then somebody's telling me, you're saying you're okay, you were present, you did your best. It's not about you, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Systems view.
Yeah, thanks for that. And it feels like, what you're saying in this also, maybe you haven't said it explicitly, but just normalizing the difficulty, the challenges, the complexity, and having a space to kind of just safely unpack all of that and process it.
Yeah, that's a good way of coming at it. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so the recovery, the safety, it was interesting because we were just talking about the safety aspect and group versus one-on-one supervision. And we had a question, just quickly, a little off-road here. We did have a question about group supervision and why you would or would not go to it. We have a bias that we love group supervision because we, collective learning and all the different perspectives, and often having a preconceived idea that maybe some people shy away from group supervision because of maybe shame or embarrassment of their experience level, and maybe, oh, I had a problem. But actually the survey results showed that people were very happy and willing to be vulnerable and felt held and safe amongst their supervision group. So that was another really happy story that we got out of our research. So I just wanted to share that. What else is here as far as benefits or impact that supervision can have for team coaches, team coaching?
Just adding to Naomi, in our group, we ended talking about co-coaching and when co-coaching being supervised as a system, the two coaches. Something I haven't experienced, but I will next time because I have done co-coaching. It would be much more interesting to be supervised as a system.
Yeah, we were having that conversation, and just how, if everyone's a co-coach if it's a group and everyone's a co-coach versus some people are co-coaches and some are not, just that learning that happens and seeing it live in the here and now, that kind of dynamics and things that are happening between the co-coach and how that might be replicated from the system or the team that they're coaching. So there's definitely a lot to explore in that area. Thanks for bringing that.
All the parallel processes are really interesting. There is a lot.
On steroids, right?
Endless.
What else is here? Think about, more systemically, the training providers, the credentialing. Is there something there as well? Yeah, Petra.
It's something that we didn't get to, we shared so much in our group that we didn't finish our conversation, as I'm sure all the
that's
others
good.
didn't either. Something that a very experienced team coach supervisor shared with me once when I got to the point of being really tired with my team coaching work, which is so much more complex than individual work, is your original team was your family of origin. So that's why there's a lot of baggage that comes, and that I think is really important to have a safe space to explore and look at, so you don't get pulled into whatever is in the air and is there in terms of dynamics that might hit our blind spots. That's one thing. And something that Marilyn said actually triggered something for me, as I'm, I just recently moved to the States and I'm trying to figure out, do I want to do business here or do I keep it in Europe or not? You are asking about the impact for the coaches, but actually I think the biggest impact is, of course, for the system that we are coaching. So who should we sell team coaching to? Should we sell it to the team coaches, or should we sell it to the teams that are being, supported, or to the organizations that those teams work for? And I think that might be an interesting thought to.
And we asked that question specifically.
Oh, okay. So that I'm curious to hear the answer.
Yeah.
And I think,
and that's, go ahead, please.
I think, besides having the support for triggering, we talked about some of the other complexities in terms of as a team coach being supervised. Part of the time I was a co-coach and someone else was coaching the leader, and part of the time I was coaching the leader and coaching the team with a co-coach. So who is coaching the leader, I think, can be just another level of complexity that it's helpful, and that can impact the dynamics. And so it's helpful to have the supervisor to check in with around that. So it's your relationship with your co-coach, with the leader, with the team, and even some of the teams I've co-coached, they're at the leadership level that they each have their own team. So they're representing a team. They're in this team. Yeah. And just the multiple layers.
Yeah, for sure. Great. Anybody else want to weigh in on this before we move to the next slide?
So
Eva.
I can, so in our group that was Suni and Erica, we were talking about what happens in the here and now between supervisor and coach, because we are a microsystem of that system. And it does have, if change doesn't happen in the here and now of our relationship, then how can we expect to bring change? And this is especially valuable when we're talking about diversity and inclusion, giving voice, working as in partnership, and looking at our biases, our beliefs, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So it's, we are part of the system, aren't we? We are a microsystem in that system. And Suni and Erica, I don't know if this reflects what we discussed.
Yeah, it brings to mind for me, Eva, just that courage and that kind of nudging that can happen in the safe space of supervision, so that the coach can then do that with the team, right? It's kind of that knock-on effect of expanding and stretching the coach so that they can do that with the team and model that either as an individual or, especially with a co-coaching relationship, like, whoa, that's magic when that happens.
And I'm aware of how often I, as either supervisor or coach or co-coach, may be the only voice that says a certain thing by asking a question, especially around diversity or inclusion or agency. That just doesn't happen a whole lot. And if I don't mention it, it may not matter, but it matters to me that I raise the bar, as it were.
Yeah, and plant that seed in the team. Yeah. I know that there's lots more here, and I know that Petra had some really good comments that I think Traci might want to follow up with some of our other research that we haven't necessarily highlighted today, but that we did discuss. So do you want to take that, Traci?
Sure. Well, as I'm going to share some of the results with all of you as far as what we learned about impact, but it wasn't just one question that we asked. And so we asked some of the co-coaches, what was most valuable with your co-coach? Well, actually, no, what was most valuable for you from supervision? Those are people who went with a co-coach. And we asked that same question actually with that if people who didn't have a co-coach, so that we had same question, two different groups of people. Then the other question we asked people were, how have you changed as a result of supervision? And that was of both groups. Then we did ask a specific one about what was the impact on your relationship with your co-coach for those that had experienced that. The alternative one for people who didn't have a co-coach was, what difference does this make for your team coaching? And then specifically to Petra's point was, what was the impact on the system that you co-coach, or sorry, not co-coach, that you coached? The team. So what was the impact on the system that you provided team coaching with? And then lastly, we had a question about what are benefits that you've experienced from supervision. So there were like 4 or 5 questions that we asked related to this. And what I'm going to share on this next slide are some quotes from people, because we had a lot of open-ended questions. And this was just a sampling of the impact that we shared. And it'll be interesting how it overlaps with some of the things you're already sharing. So I'm just going to let these scroll. It's actually animated. And so you'll see some of these. Some of them will disappear after you see them, and then others will stay on the screen. So let's take a look at what did our respondents have to say.
Balcony moment. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that enmeshment.
To talk about parallel processes, you were all talking about the same types of things that our participants have shared. Any more that you'd like to comment, Larissa, before I move us towards conclusion?
Yeah, I mean, I think that I love that recovery piece, and it's just kind of coming off learning how to regulate my anxiety for results and how to make the team responsible for the results they are going to achieve. That's a huge one, I think. So that one, just like, whoa, I love that one.
I know.
Yeah,
it's very powerful. So the job that we do as supervisors is extremely valuable for team coaches. So stay tuned for more. We will be sharing more of what we're learning. And there's other ways that you can stay connected with us. In fact, later, well, it's not this month, it's next month, right, Larissa? The 20th is our next community of practice for supervision of team coaches. So I guess even we were talking about education, right? Like of specific to team coaching supervision. Well, I think community is just as important as education. And so we're coming together to discuss best practices and challenges. And anything more you'd like to share, Larissa, about that?
Yeah, just to know that community practice is intended for people that are actively team coaching and supervising. So it's really that community of practice versus training. Certainly we've done some case studies where people have brought things, really just trying to share best or evolving, I think is a better way of putting it, practice. And then of course we have some groups that we are running also coming up in September. So if you know of anyone or if you're interested, let us know. And I think Lily has some things that she wants to share with you before we wrap up.
Great.
So thanks for being with us today, and it's been a pleasure.
Thank you, Larissa and Traci. It was fascinating. And I'd love to see more and hear more about the results, because that was a really great sample, 176 people or whatever it was. Amazing. All right, so as everyone knows, I think most of you, maybe the new ones don't, we meet every third Monday of the month, same time, same room. Next month in September, we will be celebrating the book launch. So the America's Coaching Supervision Network sponsored a book last year, and it is being published as we speak at the printers, and it will be released in September. So there will be discussion about the different chapters in it. All of that great, exciting. And then October, we have Tatiana Bashkarova coming. So she's a big person in the coaching supervision world. Probably most of you, if not everyone, if you're in supervision or have been in supervision training, has studied her work. She's also I think the program director at Oxford Brookes, the coaching supervision program there. And then November, there will be a conversation about supervision in the BIPOC space, the Black, Indigenous, and people of color. Some of you know that I do run those kind of groups, and some of my colleagues will come and we'll talk about what's the value of BIPOC groups and why do we have them specific that way, the impacts. And then in December, we'll have a celebration. And if any of you have topics you'd like to bring forward next year, please reach out to me or to Damien. And I'd love to continue the team coaching supervision as well. So if you want another session next year, that would be great as well. Any other last comments before we close? Thank you, everyone, for coming, and see you next month.
Thank you all.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank
This is
you.
great.
All
Bye.
right.
Thank you for the
Take
session.
care. You're welcome. Take care. Thanks.